to be able to attach our brand to what will be the largest stadium in the Western Hemisphere, and an iconic stadium for one of the best football programs in the country, it was just a no-brainer.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a surprise Tuckheads Tuesday. Typically in the offseason, we do 3 episodes a week, usually Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Might have caught you guys off guard, but decided last night we need to do a Tuckheads Tuesday this week. We'll have Greg Cosell, the NFL Films legend, on Thursday to get his thoughts on the big free agent moves. But so much happened yesterday on day one of the legal tampering period, and we got the opportunity to get an amazing guest. So I want to do the show as soon as possible here on Tuesday morning. The guest is one of you guys. He's a listener, and he just bought the naming rights to perhaps the greatest home field advantage in all of football in the United States. We'll get to that momentarily. A lot, and I mean a lot, to get to as it relates to free agency. The best way to do, I think, will be team by team. But let's start with the big show.
The Big Show.
So excited about today's guest. Obviously, we're going to get to all of the free agency news and some big trades. There's a lot of it, but major news in the world of football on Monday with Penn State securing a naming rights deal from West Shore Home, which, as several of you pointed out via email and on social media, yeah, you're very familiar because they advertise on the show. Not only do they advertise on the show, their founder and CEO is a listener, BJ Werzyn. You can check him out on social media at BJ Werzyn, Werzyn, or certainly follow at West Shore Home on social. Most importantly, go to westshorehome.com/Ross, where all of your wildest dreams will come true. But BJ, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It was quite an interesting day.
Yeah, I bet. So I guess before we even get into the Penn State stuff, I know you listen to the Ross Tucker podcast, you listen to Even Money. What are you usually doing when you're listening to the show? I love getting a chance to actually talk to listeners.
Yeah, pretty dedicated listener all football season long. I'm normally just driving around in my car and picking up the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, or like you said, Even Money.
Love it. Okay, you're also a diehard Steelers fan. So I got to ask this before we get into the Penn State stuff. What are you thinking right now about quarterback now that Fields is signed with the Jets and Darnold is signed with the Seahawks?
Yeah, it doesn't look too promising for us. Even coming into free agency, I wasn't super excited about any of the options, but now Fields and Darnold are both off the table, and they were probably my top 2 picks. So it looks like we're down to either Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or perhaps Daniel Jones. So we'll see what happens.
Do you have a preference for any of those? Like, do you have a guy that you'd rather? Not really.
I think Wilson or Rodgers is probably like a 1 or 2 year thing, and then they got to figure out what they're doing for the long term. I guess Daniel Jones could potentially be more of a long-term solution, but again, not super excited about any of the 3. So if I had to pick one, I don't know, probably Daniel Jones.
I think Daniel Jones, like, why can't he be the Baker Mayfield from 2 years ago or the Donald from last year? I'd like to see him somewhere where they have better weapons and a better line than he had in New York with the Giants, obviously. Something you are excited about is the deal that got approved on Monday for West Shore Home to have the official naming rights for Beaver Stadium. It'll be West Shore Home Field at Beaver Stadium. I guess how did this even start?
So, I've been a longtime supporter of Penn State, academics, athletics, philanthropy. So I'm always interested in discussion about how we could expand that support for the university, but to continue to build the brand for West Shore Home. So this for me was a real no-brainer. I started talking to them about this probably more than 6 months ago. And it's just exciting to see what they're going to do with that stadium. They're doing a $700 million renovation and reimagining like what they can do with that historic facility. It had been in the past only used for home football games. And now it's going to be used, year round, 365 days. They're going to have concerts there. They're going to have outdoor hockey. So again, to be able to attach our brand to what will be the largest stadium in the Western Hemisphere, and an iconic stadium for one of the best football programs in the country, it was just a no-brainer.
So there's a bunch of different things there. First of all, I've told my listeners before, my first memory of my life was my parents taking me to a Penn State game at Beaver Stadium. I can't remember if I was 4 or 5, but I just remember seeing it and then seeing the colors of the grass. I was like, oh yeah, this is me. I was hooked. That's awesome. Secondly, I can't remember if it was last spring, but I went to a concert there. It was like Jordan Davis and Mitchell Tenpenny and Luke
Luke Combs.
Combs.
Yep.
Maybe the coolest setting for a concert I've ever been at. And I got a chance to talk to a couple of those guys like Mitchell Tenpenny and Jordan Davis, and they were raving about it. I hope they have a bunch more concerts there.
That's the plan, and it'd be pretty cool to play in front of 80, 90,000 people. I don't think they can get 100,000 in there for a concert, but pretty cool venue for a pretty cool country concert.
Okay, so something like this, all right, because I've seen the press releases and stuff. How much of a deal like this is sort of philanthropic? You're supporting Penn State, you're supporting the university, the football program, the athletics, and how much of it is, hey, I think this is a really good opportunity to continue to grow West Shore home?
Yeah, I think it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the university. It's a win for the company because of the brand awareness that we'll get from it, but also just the partnership that I've had with Penn State now for many years. I'm a grad alumni, 1999. I've been helping them out with NIL and different things with the football program now for the past several years. We've formed a relationship with the university from an academic standpoint, partnering up with the College of Information Sciences and Technology. So we build a lot of our own technology here at West Shore Home. So this is going to give students the opportunity to do internships with us, secure full-time employment once they graduate. We could potentially do some capstone projects. And we've also been involved with the university from a philanthropic standpoint, working with them in Four Diamonds for cancer research. So again, this was just something that we looked at, a way to continue that partnership and that relationship, but also use it for brand awareness for West Shore Home.
So it's interesting, as I know you know, since you're a listener, I call games on TV for CBS, both NFL and college. And I think pretty much every NFL team has a naming rights deal. And I think at the start of the second quarter and fourth quarter, maybe, we'll say, welcome back to Lincoln Financial Field or Acrisure Stadium or whatever. I'm not as familiar with it at the college level. I don't remember that many of them. Maybe I just haven't done that enough big time college games. But I've been at some big stadiums. How much do you think this is going to kind of become the way of college football?
Well, with the new landscape, right, and NIL, and now moving to more of a rev share model, increasing athletic department revenues is going to be top of mind for every major program out there. And you're right, there aren't many corporate sponsors naming rights for college stadiums, but I think this will be the tip of the spear, and I think you're going to see this happening a lot more in the next coming years.
Where's the greatest value for West Shore Home with this deal? I mean, I know there's a lot of aspects of it. Is it, just what I said, them saying it on TV? Is it the in-stadium stuff? I don't know what all comes with it or whatever, but where did you guys really feel like there was value?
Yeah, so the in-stadium stuff's great. You got 110,000 people seeing your brand and your advertising. But really, Penn State plays several nationally televised games every single year, and those games can have 10 million plus viewers. As you know, you've done some of those games. So the mentions on TV, as we're now a national company, we're in 40 plus markets and 20 some states. So being able to get that national branding all over the country was really interesting for us on this deal.
It's so interesting to me to see several people email me or several people, send me tweets today like Ross, your company, your company. Like, I don't know if you were listening to Even Money podcast a couple weeks ago, where a PFT commenter from Pardon My Take talked about, oh no, it wasn't Even Money. It was Ross Tucker. He was talking about how at Even Money, he was following along to me getting the new doors at my house and how invested he was in that. But it's just cool to see sort of that amplification effect, I guess. How did you know what the right price was if there aren't a lot of other college deals? Like, are there other college deals you looked at? Did you compare it to the NFL? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because there aren't many comps out there, right? We're kind of setting the market, but there are consultants out there that will do valuations on things like this, right? It's a multi-year deal, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, how many times you're going to be on TV, how many of those are going to be national games. We did our own. I'm sure the university did their own diligence. We just kind of worked through it together as a partnership, triangulated where we wanted to be, what we thought was fair for West Shore Home from a branding standpoint, and what was fair for the athletic department and the university. And I think we got to the right place.
Last question. I got to ask you, just obviously living here in Central PA and seeing social media, it's really cool because it's been overwhelmingly positive. There is a segment, I guess, of maybe former players or I don't know, maybe it's a vocal minority. I'm not sure, but there are people that really wanted it to be Joe Paterno Field. I know you were at school. When you were at school, Joe Paterno was the coach. Just curious your opinion on that, if you have one. If you don't want to comment, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment on board matters and the vote and how that went down today. We're just looking forward to helping the university achieve academic, athletic, and philanthropic excellence. As you said, Coach Paterno was a coach when I went to school here. Nothing that we're doing here is trying to tarnish his legacy, erase his legacy. Anybody that grew up a Penn State fan has nothing but respect for Coach Paterno's legacy. But this is more about West Shore Home building their own legacy, and how we can build a legacy of service to the Penn State community. A friend of mine, Mike Maudie, he played for Paterno. His brother played for Paterno. His dad played for Paterno. And he just put out a tweet saying something to the effect of, like, his legacy is not about his name being on the field, but it's about the product that we're putting on the field and what these kids do outside the lines. And I think it was well said, and I really appreciate that. And I hope most people do understand that, getting Paterno's name on the field probably wasn't going to happen or be a reality. So this is the absolute best thing for the football team, for the athletic department, and the university.
Love it. Very, very exciting. It'll be cool to see those logos. Any chance when you put like the logo on the field, have you considered westshorehome.com/Ross?
We'll take that under consideration.
Thank you, man. Congratulations. Very, very cool. Appreciate you coming on the show.
All right. Thanks, Ross. Thanks for having me on.
You know what I love about Smirnoff, other than them being an official sponsor of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast and some of the other shows, by the way, all season, and we're still rolling with Smirnoff? It's the fact that you can get good vodka without breaking the bank. That's what they call Smirnoff Extraordinary. Listen, you do not need to spend that much money on vodka, okay? It's vodka. And like I told you guys, Pedialyte, Gatorade Zero, those Gatorade things with the caffeine. What are they called? I do things. I put my vodka with things that are hydrating me while I'm drinking it. It's delicious. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. It may vary by state. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. Smirnoff, we do game days.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, let's kick off your thoughts on these free agency signings. We'll go division by division, starting with your thoughts in the AFC East.
So the Buffalo Bills have primarily just brought back their own guys, right? Signing Josh Allen and Shakir and Rousseau and Bernard. But they did make a couple moves yesterday. They got another receiver, another weapon for Josh Allen in the form of Josh Palmer, and they got another D lineman in the mix with Michael Hoyt from the Rams.
You have any thoughts on the rest of the AFC East, or are we moving?
Yeah. So the Dolphins, Zach Wilson signing is interesting. I guess they wanted an upgrade, and they feel like he is at backup quarterback with Tua's injury history. Then they went O-line, Larry Borum and James Daniels. The Patriots were the most active team in the AFC East. It was interesting because for a while there, and I tweeted this, Jack, at Ross Tucker NFL, it was primarily guys on their third contract that are 28, third or fourth contract that are 28 or older, like Austin Hooper, Morgan Moses, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis. But then they made the big splash for Milton Williams, who's an ascending player. By the way, he's getting $6 million more per year than Odigizua. No idea what Odigizua was. Then they also got Matt Collins and Joshua Dobbs in there. And the Jets made one of the biggest splashes of free agency so far. I'm not talking about Brandon Stevens, the corner, or Andre Sisco, the safety. Justin Fields is at least the starting quarterback for the Jets this year. And he got enough guaranteed money that they're really giving him a chance to be the guy over the next 2 years.
Several players signed throughout the AFC North, including Samaje Perine, who did not get $23 million. What were your thoughts on some of the AFC North deals?
Ravens, nothing. Bengals are taking care of a lot of the lower level guys, right? They got Oren Burks at linebacker, TJ Slayton at D-line, brought back guys like BJ Hill and Asai and Gesicki, but still nothing with the big name guys. The Browns made a quarterback trade. They traded a 5th round pick and DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, to the Eagles for Kenny Pickett. So that at least gives them a veteran option at quarterback. The Steelers, meanwhile, they're still just waiting to see who their quarterback is. You heard BJ Werzyn talking about that a little bit earlier in the show.
What about the AFC South? What are you thinking there? A couple of teams made some big moves.
Not much from the Texans standpoint, just kind of more peripheral guys like Justin Watson, the receiver, Sheldon Rankins. The Colts, big money in the secondary. You can tell what Lou Anarumo, their new D coordinator, wants. Cam Bynum, 4 years, $60 million at safety. Travarius Ward, 3 years, up to $60 million, $35 million guaranteed to the Colts. Clearly felt like secondary was where they needed the biggest upgrade. The Jags are making a lot of moves. A couple of versatile O-linemen. Robert Hainsey from the Bucks, Patrick McCary, who I've always loved, from the Baltimore Ravens. They also still have gotten some other guys. Safety Eric Murray, Jordan Lewis, a very good nickelback from the Cowboys, and then De'Ami Brown, who finished the year really strong for the Commanders. As for the Titans, they spent biggest at left tackle. Dan Moore gets a huge deal. That's a perplexing one to me, that the Steelers never locked him up. You know, it makes you wonder what they didn't like about him or what they thought they could do better there. But the Steelers, they let Dan Moore go, and the Titans are going to move J.C. Latham, last year's top 10 pick, to right tackle, and feel like they're finally solidified at their 2 tackle spots.
2 notes. I'm going to throw this back at you. Spent the biggest? Wouldn't it be spent the most?
Spent the most, yeah, probably.
And before, do you have any thoughts on the Laremy Tunsil trade, or do you want to cover that when we get to Washington?
I was going to cover it when we got to Washington. Good call.
Okay, let's go to the AFC West. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm pretty much doing teams additions as opposed to subtractions right now. The Broncos brought back Jarrett Stidham. They must really like him. Pretty good deal there. And then they got 2 former Niners on defense, Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga. You can tell the Broncos want some run and hit guys. The Chiefs, they got their offensive tackle that they felt like they desperately needed. They feel like under Andy Heck, they can get Jalen Moore to play left tackle at a high level. The Raiders, they're more around the periphery. You know, I'm not getting that much into who teams lost, but the Raiders lost Nate Hobbs. The Raiders lost Trayvon Merrick. I mean, these are some of their better players. They just let them walk. Instead, they did bring back Malcolm Kuntz and Adam Butler, and they brought in Jeremy Chin from Washington. The Chargers, a lot of people thought Khalil Mack would go elsewhere. He gets a 1-year, $18 million fully guaranteed deal. That's $1 million a week. Kudos to him. And then they bring in Najee Harris on a 1-year deal. The best thing I would say about Najee is he's durable, and he is a bell cow back in terms of he can take a licking and keep on ticking, which is something the Chargers really value. Just not a ton of juice there.
All right, we'll head over to the NFC starting with the NFC East, which includes a trade we did say we were going to talk about here because it's an addition, not a subtraction. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to start with the Cowboys, though, because they're in order on NFL.com, where I'm going through each by team, because I think that's the most effective way to do it. Cowboys are kind of doing what they do now. They're bargain shopping. Javonte Williams, Robert Jones. They did get a good contract with the Diggy Zua, so give them credit for that. The Giants, I kind of like what the Giants have done. Roy Robertson Harris on the D-line, Chauncey Golston on the D-line. I think those are pretty good players. Darius Slayton, they bring him back. Gosh, every year for the last 10 years, they've been like, oh, we got to upgrade Slayton, and he's still there. Paulson Adebo got a big deal, but the Giants still need a quarterback. The Eagles, we mentioned that Kenny Pickett trade with DTR. Other than that, they've just been losing guys. Isaiah Rodgers, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. This was kind of what was anticipated. I said in a Ross report, I think they expected to lose most of these guys. They are in line to get 3 comp picks, 3rd, 4th, and 6th round for losing those guys. The Commanders, you said it, Jack, maybe as active as anyone. Javon Kinlaw got a big deal. And then the big move is the Laremy Tunsil trade. They trade a 4th round pick. No, they get a 4th round pick back, but they trade 3rd and 7th this year, 2nd and 4th in 2026. Here's what I'd say about Laremy Tunsil, okay? Elite pass protector. I would be curious to see a study on the impact of all of his penalties, right? He gets like almost 20 penalties a year. That's not good. Think about it, if an offensive lineman costs your team at least 5 yards every game. I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing to kind of break down or dive into.
We'll move forward to the NFC North, including the Bears, who spent a lot of money in the trenches.
A lot of money. They know what they want. They get Drew Dahlman to play center in between Tooney and Jonah Jackson, so they're feeling great about the interior trio. And then on defense, Grady Jarrett as a guy that can penetrate and still has some juice left at D tackle. And then Odangbo from the Colts off the edge. Really like what Ryan Poles has done. This is kind of the Philadelphia model. Now, the Eagles more draft them than sign them, but the point is that obviously they are trying very, very hard to beef up in the trenches, which is cool.
Thoughts across the rest of the NFC North when we move forward between Green Bay and Minnesota?
Yeah, well, so first I'll say Detroit, DJ Reed. So the Lions lost Carlton Davis, and then they signed DJ Reed. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I think DJ Reed's younger. He can play inside and outside. He was cheaper. I thought that was a good move for the Lions. I mean, I don't know. I think DJ Reed might be every bit as good as Carlton Davis. The Packers, they don't spend often, Jack, but when they do, it usually works out. Think about last year, Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney. They spend big to get Aaron Banks at guard. I was a little bit surprised by that. Was not expecting them to pay that much for a guard. And then Nate Hobbs, who's versatile, can play outside, inside. I like that move. The Vikings haven't been shy either. They got Isaiah Rodgers to play corner, who had done some nice things for the Philadelphia Eagles. Ryan Kelly at center. They feel like it's an upgrade. And maybe the biggest one is they re-signed Byron Murphy. I think we talked about Aaron Jones on yesterday's show, but Byron Murphy was a guy that had played really well for them.
What about your thoughts in the NFC South between the Falcons, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Bucks?
Well, the Falcons, Jake Matthews, all they've really done is sign Jake Matthews, who he always gets a lot of money. I mean, he's made a lot of money in his career. Losing Grady Jarrett, though, and Dahlman. I don't know how you feel good about that if you're a Falcons fan. Panthers, one of the more active teams, right? Patrick Jones is an edge guy. Man, they paid a lot of money for Tershawn Wharton from the Chiefs, thinking that he's an ascending guy, can build on those 8.5 sacks. They locked up J.C. Horn. They gave Bobby Brown good money. And Trayvon Merrick, I mentioned the other Raiders DB that left. They got him. The Saints are looking at D-line. They trade for Devon Godshaw, and they gave Chase Young a huge contract. I'm not sure. I feel like he's ever really earned that. Bucks brought back Godwin and Bredesen, and they gave Hassan Reddick a pretty darn good deal.
All right, we'll move last but not least, the NFC West, which includes the biggest signing from the first day of free agency.
Well, not surprised by the Cardinals bringing in Josh Sweat. I think we thought that would happen. They also brought back Baron Browning, Evan Brown. The Rams, we had talked about Devontae Adams. They bring in Poona Ford as well. How about the Niners? They're losing a lot of guys. Now they're supposedly going to cut our guy Juszczyk. Hard to look at what the Niners have done and think they're getting better at all, but this is the price you pay when you've got the issue going on with Brock Purdy's contract and the Seahawks. The biggest domino to fall, you talked about it, Jack. Sam Darnold gets $100 million. That's the other starting quarterback job that we have cemented. They also brought back Jaron Reed, Ernest Jones, and they signed Josh Jones. What a huge first day in the NFL. As if I didn't already love the Labatt guys enough, now they're giving you cool stuff for doing what you're going to do anyway. Drink beer. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt. You just go to their website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. You get points for any purchase at any store, bar, stadium, whatever, any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. I love it because I love giving people unique, cool gifts that they'll have hanging up in their house forever as a tremendous keepsake. Myfrontpagestory.com, backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.